All right, welcome everybody. It is Friday, August 22nd, 2025, and today we're doing something we've never really done before in the Florida EMS webinar, which is talk about a case that brings together all of the people who were involved in the case. And we actually have the very special person who was actually treated in that case who selflessly agreed to join us today and react to what he's going to hear today. So he hasn't really met several of the people who have helped him. And so this would be a very special day just to kind of broaden out a little bit. 30,000 foot behind us here is to say that only about 200, and Randy will quote me on this one, let's say 265 agencies in America use whole blood. This case was in 2022 or so, when we were just starting whole blood in Palm Beach County, and it was one of our very first cases of whole blood administration. This happened to be at a neighboring fire department, and you'll hear this story in a minute, but this is not even Palm Beach County zone or district. And so everything that happened here was kind of really happened for all the right reasons, let's put it that way. And so what I want to do is set the table here, because what we're trying to do in the state of Florida, and I'm going to have Dr. Shepke, our Deputy Secretary of Health, talk at the end, is we're trying to do something very big in Florida, which is to get blood and blood products everywhere, so that the story you hear today is just not a one-off, but it's the norm, right? And if you look at the number of fatalities in Florida, just from motor vehicle crashes, it's over 10,000. And 50% of those people were alive when EMS got there. So let me say that again. All the people who died, and we know they died as a consequence of their car crash, half of them were alive when we got there. That means 5,000 or so people could have been saved potentially, and weren't, because they couldn't make it to the trauma center, or they were too sick when they got to the trauma center to be saved. Stories like today prove, amongst all the data that we have so far now, that you can have a 90% survival if you have blood and blood products in your system. We have a lot of experts on today. This is, some of the best names I've seen joining this webinar today. So without any further ado, I want to introduce a couple people. So first is EMS Captain Adrian Castro. Adrian, he will never tell you this. He is probably the best paramedic and EMS captain I've ever worked with, okay? He's, years ago, I wrote a story about him that made the front cover of EMS World, because not only is he a great clinician, he's a great human being, and he knows how to speak to people in their worst times. So we were very lucky that that day, EMS Captain Castro was on shift, and he happened to have one of our medical directors, or EMS medical directors, Dr. Adam Bromberg, who's on the call today. His camera can't be on. He's in the ER. They were both riding that day when they got the call. So before I go any further, I'm going to pass over to EMS Captain Castro. Adrian, thank you for joining us. And if you could please tell us what happened that day and what you saw. And also, I know you're going to include West Palm Beach, the story from them as well. But take it away, my friend.
Yes, sir. Well, first and foremost, thank you for those words that you've shared with everyone. And I thank you for the privilege of being here. And Corey, nice to meet you, although by camera. Unfortunately, we did meet prior, but it wasn't under great conditions. So Dr. Bromberg, one of our medical directors, was riding with us. I think it's routine that medical directors ride with EMS captains to basically ascertain kind of like what we do and run some calls and maybe provide some training. I know Dr. Pepe is on the call as well. Dr. Pepe and I have ridden together as well. And we love that they share some of the stories and some of the brilliance that the medical directors like yourself, Dr. Entebbe, and everyone else, Dr. Shepke, have. And the guys kind of embrace it at the fire station. So that particular day, Dr. Bromberg was riding with me. I want to say, I didn't pull up the report, and I really didn't look into the report, but I want to say it was probably sometime in the early afternoon, and Corey could probably attest to that, somewhere in the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock range. And Dr. Bromberg was actually getting ready to leave. and the call drops, and it was in the city of West Palm Beach's zone. And they apparently their EMS captain may have been busy. And it just so happens that we, at the time, we were carrying whole blood. Today, we carry whole blood and plasma. So at the time we were carrying whole blood, I think we probably had 6 months into it, something like that. And it came in as a shooting. And we have resources that are able to provide us with some information as to whatever the dispatcher is receiving. She transcribes onto a little computer, and we're able to read those notes as we're approaching the scene. We understand that it was a deputy involved shooting. So when we arrived on scene, Dr. Bromberg and I, there were multiple units on scene, multiple deputies, in addition to City of West Palm Beach Police Department, and of course, City of West Palm Beach Fire Department. So I get out of the truck and I ask where the patient is, and the patient was already in the back of the City of West Palm Beach fire rescue vehicle, and he was semi-Fowler's on the stretcher, and he was conscious and alert. And Captain Fraterillo, who works for the City of West Palm Beach Fire Department at the time, he was in operations and he was on the engine. Currently, he also serves as an EMS captain for the City of West Palm Beach. I think he functions as a SWAT medic for the City of West Palm Beach as well. So everything kind of aligned for Corey. So he was providing direct pressure. The wound was a penetrating wound to his right groin. Because we all know that the groin area is a junctional area, we really couldn't apply any type of tourniquet. So the only thing that we could do is apply direct pressure. So Captain Fraterillo was applying direct pressure. I believe he was using his elbow, and obviously he was using other types of either 5x9 or C-locks or anything to try to stop the bleeding. Corey was conscious, Corey was pale, and he was diaphoretic. And his blood pressure was within normal limits per se. His rate was somewhere in the 90s, I can recall. And we do have a protocol that's been designed for the application and the giving of plasma and blood. And Corey actually didn't fit within that lane. He didn't fit within those parameters. But I referred to Dr. Bromberg, being our medical director, and I asked him, I said, sir, I believe he could use a unit of blood. What do you think? And he says, Adrian, absolutely. His wound is in the femoral triangle. I've never heard of that before. But I said, okay. So I asked Corey, I says, Corey, do you mind if I give you a unit of blood? And Corey says, no, I don't mind. So we do ask patients who are conscious because of religious preferences and so on and so forth. He says, no, I don't mind. So we gave him a unit of blood. At the time, I don't remember if we were using TXA. I don't recall if we had TXA implemented into the protocol. But if we did, we gave him a unit of blood and we gave him some TXA. And we took him to the hospital. And en route to the hospital, Dr. Entevi and those watching, I tell people all the time, it was like turning on a light switch. His color improved. He stopped sweating. He said he felt better. We get him into the surgical room and they're at St. Mary's Hospital, and they assess his wound, and his blood pressure is normotensive. It's like 130/80 or something like that. And then his rate came down. So the administration of the blood product, and I tell people today that I don't know per se if it quote unquote saved his life, but I think it allowed time for the surgeons and the staff at St. Mary's to do what they needed to do in order to provide care for him. That's pretty much how it went down.
Amazing, amazing. Let me bring in Dr. Bromberg. Adam, go ahead, and I know you're working today, but would love to hear your thoughts. Great from the rest of Adrian's
Absolutely.
story.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I'll first say you guys just heard Adrian say it in a very calm, cool, collected way. I'm going to tell you, he was just as calm, cool, and collected on the scene. You know, when we walked up and saw what's going on, this was not a chaotic environment, which you would expect to see with, you know, a deputy shooting. Yes, there were a lot of police officers around, a lot of people with guns and large guns and protecting us and everybody else. But Adrian was very, you know, appropriate the way he handled the situation. We got in the back of the rig with West Palm, and they were very appreciative, accommodating, and collaborative, which I was super excited to see the way that they work together as a team. When an EMS from Palm Beach County Fire Rescue showed up to a different department, you wouldn't have known the difference, which departments were there when we sat in the back of this rig. And he's exactly right. We're looking at the patient. He looked, pale and did not look, what we would expect to in somebody that would have been just having that event. And when he looked at me and said, "Hey, what do you think?" 100%, we said, "Yeah, let's go." And, I think for Corey's situation, as you said, Peter, the stars kind of aligned that, we were together. He didn't have to call for a report, didn't have to ask for permission. We were sitting next to each other. And it really was, as he said, just eye-opening how quickly he turned around and how he looked. And on our transport to the hospital, I mean, we were talking pretty much the whole way there. So it was a nice experience. And back to what he said, this was early on when we started carrying blood. So this was one of the first couple times that we actually gave it in Palm Beach County. So it was a great experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being there and for making that happen. And for your compliments of the other agency, because we do all work very well together, and that's the beauty of South Florida. I'm going to bring it now to one of my very good friends, Nir Huss, who is not just a trauma surgeon, but he is like uber skilled, right? This guy, he's very humble. He speaks around the country. He's invented things. He's done things that other surgeons from around the world come and learn from. So, but he won't tell you that. And in fact, I didn't hear about Corey's story until we were having dinner one night. And he says, "I got to say, your guys at Palm Beach County, they're just fantastic." And then he told me the story, and that's how this whole thing came about. So Nir, thanks for joining us today amongst all these EMS people. And I would love to hear, because you not only saw Corey in the trauma bay, you took him to the OR, but then you've become close to him because you've followed him now for years. So I'd love to hear your comments, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and good morning. So I have to say first that, I was really surprised when he came in. Based on the injury, I just would have expected somebody to be completely out of it, He was not. He was definitely conscious. So, I know that whole blood made a huge difference, because the starting point was already in a much better position than I would have expected initially. So before I even examined him, I thought, okay, maybe it's not really that bad of an injury, because it doesn't match what I'm seeing here. But the moment I took a look at the area, it was very clear that the next step is directly to the OR. So we didn't spend time wasting, doing anything other than putting pressure, which is, as you guys mentioned, the only thing that you can do and should do, and continue with the blood. I don't remember if the unit was fully given before he arrived, or we just continued it there. But either way, the next step was, go to the OR, because it was definitely a severe injury. Obviously, what did help also is physiology is very good. I mean, he's pretty athletic, and that definitely helps for sure. But that being said, ultimately, you have to repair the damage, and in his case, it was one of the major vessels in the body. As you know, we carry about 5 liters of blood on the average. So I am sure he lost probably over a liter. I would be certain, if not more. And the vessels do contract a little bit. But when you get hit on the femoral, either vein or the artery, this thing bleeds a lot. I mean, a lot meaning probably about 2 liters a minute, approximately. So you can see that if you don't gain control of at least the artery for sure, within a few minutes, you're done, So obviously, without having the right team in place at the get-go, we will not be having this discussion today. So this is first and foremost. Secondarily, now that I received somebody that I can actually do something with and help them, certainly the whole blood made a huge difference in this case in particular, simply because it can help with the physiology and get him not so behind the 8 ball, gives us more time and buys us a little bit more time to make sure that we do our job on our end appropriately. And any minute counts. That's really the bottom line. So took him to the OR, and over there exposed the wound. It was pretty devastating injury. There was quite a lot that had to be repaired. It did require, I think, probably an hour and a half in the operating room or so. But I knew that the big issue is really obviously afterwards. The recovery takes a long time, specifically for these types of injuries. The nerve is very close to the nerve that controls, the femoral nerve that controls the leg is right there. You know, there's a concussion wave that hits it. At a minimum, even if nothing, let's say, directly touched it. In this case, there was some nerve injury, so we had to repair the nerve, we repair the vein, and we repair the artery. So it's literally everything that controls that leg was severely damaged and injured. And you know, giving me that extra time to spend and be able to not separate this into, let's say, multiple procedures primarily, but get the repair at the get-go and at the initial, you know, insult very shortly after, have that injury already taken care of. That was a great benefit. And definitely, I am certain that the whole blood, and since then, I mean, this is not the last case, obviously, where we've been using it. So we know that it's been a game changer. And Corey is, you know, one of the first ones to benefit in our county, but absolutely, it's a game changer.
Before I bring Corey on, near a question for you: how many additional units of blood does Corey need? Do you have that on top of your head?
I don't have it, but I don't think it was that much, because maybe 5 units or more with approximately the same of FFP and maybe 2 packs of platelets, which is really not a lot for this type of an injury. And again, it's because we had that extra time with the person physiology not being so behind. It just made a huge difference. So not just on the injury aspect time, but also during the management for the anesthesiologist during the OR, which is what their job is at this point, is to resuscitate the patient.
And the only reason I brought that up, that story is being told now that people who get blood in the pre-hospital setting saves many more units of blood later on, saves them from going into DIC, etc. And I remember when you told me the story years ago, you said that you were surprised how stable he was, and you said it here earlier. And there was a paper that came out recently that showed that the trauma centers are seeing patients coming into their centers. They're expecting them much more severe, but in fact, they're not so sick. And they even use the term unexpected. I think we all know why that is, but I think we should attribute that to the whole blood. So,
can I add one comment to it for you also? Because one thing that, you know, you asked about is how much additional blood products that Dr. Neer had to give. But the difference between what we do in the hospital versus using whole blood as an outpatient, for a lot of the people, I'm not sure that on the team that are listening here understand that difference of those terms. In the hospital, we break that whole blood down into different products and give different products at different times. And Dr. Neer was talking about how he gave platelets, et cetera, where in whole blood, they're getting everything all at once. So it helps with the coagulation. It helps with volume resuscitation. It helps with oxygen carrying capacity. So it kind of encompasses everything. Now, in the hospital setting, that's not always the best because we don't want to use all those different products all at the same time. So we split them out and use them differently. But I wanted to make sure everybody on the call understands the difference between those two worlds too.
You know, there's one little aspect also that helps here, but can also be a detrimental issue. Is as the surgeon approaches the patient, my expectation, like you just said, is to expect a much worse person to be dealing with, at least on the get-go, because that's what we're used to. And to be seeing somebody who at least doesn't look as bad, but really is very bad. There's something really terrible happening. So that switch in your mind needs to be, this is a facade. I still need to do what I need to do. Even though he looks so well right now, this is temporary. But it really is. It's that mindset that, okay, I have a few extra minutes, you know, of grace here, but don't lose the fact that we're still dealing with a pretty devastating injury that needs to be dealt with immediately.
Great comment, Paul. If you can make a quick comment, then I'm going to go to the deputy.
Yeah, it's just that one of the things we're also learning now, as I presented, you know, at the Eagles a couple weeks ago, is that the blood itself or plasma actually helped to not only protect but actually kind of heal, probably delivering some products to the glycocalyx that might be torn, and so it really enhances. And of course, if you have more blood around, you can have more stuff to to coagulate. And so it's multifactorial. The reason why we're seeing this better just by giving the blood itself.
Yeah, great points. Thanks for saying that. All right, now for the man of the hour. So, first of all, Deputy Zuccaro, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I know we had to go through a lot of hoops to get the approvals for you to get here today and for you to tell your story for the very first time. We'd love to hear in your own words and react to what you've heard here today.
Well, I can tell you, thank you very much for having me. I can tell you this much. I'm glad I didn't know all the things I just heard when I was going through it, because it sounded much more terrible hearing it now than it did when I was initially shot. Anyway, I did receive an on-duty injury. It was a 5.56 rifle round to the pelvis, from what I can tell. And please, doctors, if I say something that's wrong, let me know. But it did shatter the pelvis. It was immense. I can't even put it into words how painful the bullet wound was when it happened. As the news reporter, I believe, said, he heard me screaming blocks away. And I think I did that for a solid 8 minutes. But I will start off with this. I want to thank the guys that were there. See what happens?
It's okay. That's okay.
Everybody did exactly what they should have done. So thanks to those guys that were on scene. That's the police part of it. Moving on to the medical part of it. The interesting thing to me, and everybody asks me every time they find out I was shot, is, did you feel the heat? And I felt the heat radiate straight up and straight down. It went straight to my head, went straight to my feet. And then, of course, the pain set in. The guys there put pressure. They started with a tourniquet. I think they realized very quickly that tourniquets weren't going to work. But they put pressure. They kept me calm. They did their thing, whatever their thing was. I tried to stay conscious because from all the movies I watched, when you don't stay conscious, you die. And that was my thought. So I tried to stay conscious. I tried to stay calm. And once someone had the bright idea to tell me to breathe, things started to slow down and calm down a little bit. I don't remember speaking to anybody in the OR. I thought I was out as soon as I was rolled into the hospital. That's what I remember. So that's interesting to hear that I was communicating in the ER. I don't remember being asked about blood, but I do remember being worked on in the rig. I don't remember a lot of blood, but it was beyond comprehension, the pain that occurred from the bullet wound. I don't know if I've ever felt anything or will ever feel anything the same, but it was immense. So, and then, that part of the initial part of it, that's all I got. So coming out of that, it was a scary experience. I mean, the hospital visit, waking up with mittens on so I can't pull anything out of my body, and tubes down my throat, and the chaos that was going on at that point. But I kept a positive attitude. And to be honest with you, and I don't know if Dr. Huss remembers this or not, but I believe the first time I saw him, he rolled me over to see what that exit wound looked like. And I'm pretty sure we were both astonished that it was healed. And so I'm a 40-year diabetic. So to think that, and whether whole blood had anything to do with it, my genes, athletic, thank you, Dr. Huss, I'll take that compliment. I don't know what anything had to do with it, but I healed very well. And I have a little bit of nerve damage here and there in my foot. But considering what took place, I am walking normal. I'm running normal. I'm back to full duty. Matter of fact, I was back to full duty in January of that next year. So 3+ months. And God bless all you guys. Like, I know nothing about medical, nothing other than tourniquets and Band-Aids. So God bless you guys and again, from what I understand, I could be wrong, Dr. Huss did this stuff in the military. Like, everybody that was involved in my incident seemed to be the right person, the right time, the right place. Having the medical director able to say, snap of a finger, do it, without making phone calls and all those things that come into play. I mean, I used to always say and joke that if I get shot in the finger, I'm going to die. And so I got 100 times that and survived, I'm sure, partly because of the blood and partly because of the team of amazing people that work with me.
Well, thank you so much for telling us your story and um, relaying the emotion and the fact that you are a diabetic and that you've been a diabetic for 40 years and you did heal so well. It truly was, I think, the stars aligning. But I would love to have the team react and respond to that. So let me start with Nir. Dr. Huss, go ahead.
Yeah, so the good news for Corey was that the Versed really works well. And that's why he probably doesn't remember a lot. Because you know, it's and it's not a good memory, so it doesn't matter. You know, it's thank God that I think people don't remember and that we do have that ability. And it's always interesting to me that, you know, you can have a full conversation with somebody and they just don't remember it. And that's okay. You know, that time I just need information, and the less the person is really involved, I think the better. This is a perfect example. I mean, Corey obviously did do very well. I do remember that looking at the exit wound, and I was so surprised that it was as if it was totally healed in a relatively short amount of time. Given the fact that, you know, you have a person who's diabetic, that is also not expected. I don't know what to attribute it to. It's got to be some sort of a combination of everything, and for sure, genes is a big part of that. But yeah, I mean, the injury was through and through. There is also, correct, there was bony injury and also bleeding into the pelvis, which had to be controlled in a specific manner. And that's why, on my aspect, is the person that I received did not match the injury that I was dealing with. And, you know, the only time I see that is when we're kind of, it's as if time slows down by using, I think, whole blood, and getting the person just a little bit sooner, obviously, is always a big deal. But that being said, he did recover very well with relatively not as bad of residual, let's say, injuries that he has to deal with. And I mean, for me, that part is amazing too. And that also has to do with this healing, because I had to repair the nerve. And when you deal with nerves, oftentimes in kids, you know, they heal very well, but in adults, it's always a uphill battle. And he did overall very, very well in a relatively short amount of time. Amazing.
And Adrian, I'm going to come to you next, but I think there's an untold story here, and many people have said it so far, which is that these patients who are getting whole blood are you know, that you may need the whole blood even though your vital signs are not ready for them per our protocol. And for anyone who doesn't know EMS, the protocols are pretty rigid, meaning that if someone gives you this valuable resource when they quote unquote shouldn't have, there's always fear of, you know, am I going to get in trouble here? This was very clear because Adrian's such good clinically, and he saw the pallor, the diaphoresis, the elevating tachycardia, and he knew that this was a ticking time bomb, right? And so we have now added to our protocol paramedic discretion. But Adrian, I want to pitch it back to you because, you know, Dr. Bromberg complimented you on your nature. If you wouldn't mind kind of talking a little bit about, you know, what Corey said and the value of the EMS captain, I think is another big one. But I'd love to hear your comments in reaction to Corey's comments. You're on mute. There you go.
Pardon me. Corey, thank you for your comments, and Doc, thank you for yours. Yes, we did give him a unit of blood. At the time, we were only carrying 1 unit, and we were able to administer that unit over about 2.5 minutes through a fluid warmer. So our blood was warm to you as well, Corey. So maybe you were feeling that sensation of the blood. In addition to that, I think we gave you some pain medication. The guy from the city of West Palm gave you some pain medication to help you with your pain, because you had mentioned to us that you were in a lot of pain, as evidenced by a bullet wound through your groin there. Yeah, when we arrived in the emergency room, like I had mentioned to you guys prior, and Dr. Neer validates it. Corey didn't look as bad as he really was, and I think whole blood plays a large portion of that. And like I mentioned to you guys earlier, I've administered it multiple times now. And one of the things that whole blood does, it just buys times for the surgeons to do what they need to do. And in Corey's case, he's the epitome of what I'm talking about, because it was actually like turning on a light switch. Corey's color changed, and he stopped perspiring. But yeah, I mean, having Dr. Bromberg there was a huge thing. But I can promise you that, Corey, you would have received blood whether or not you fit into my parameters. I just use Dr. Bromberg as a buffer because he is our medical director. But I saw the need because of where when we did our assessment, and the gentleman from West Palm, Captain Fraterillo, was there, and I trust his judgment. He's a very skilled paramedic. He's a very skilled SWAT guy with the city of West Palm, and he told me what you had going on. And I said, okay, please don't let go of that. Continue to apply pressure. And we started doing what we needed to do. So yeah, everything kind of worked out. But one study, Dr. Entevi and Dr. Pepe, you're on the line. I know you like to do studies. You had mentioned to me that his recovery was fascinating, being that he was a diabetic. I wonder what the recovery is for those patients that receive whole blood pre-hospitally versus those that do not receive whole blood. I wonder if could be a study on something like that.
You're saying speed of recovery near.
Yes.
I wonder if Dr. Huss, any comments on that or thoughts on that, or is that
I mean,
something we have to look at?
I think would be definitely something interesting to look at. The numbers will have to be very high because there are a lot of confounding factors that will have to be taken into account, and then normalizing them to different, morbidities that patients have and the different injuries that they have. But overall, yes. I mean, I guess we can look into the availability of the data out there right now. I'm not sure that we actually, believe it or not, even though it's a lot, it may not be enough to account for everything to be able to tease out this specific question.
Yeah, yeah. I do want to mention, and he's here on the call today, so I want to give him a shout out. He's also one of these people who doesn't like to bring attention to himself, but Dr. Mark Peel, Corey, he's the doctor who created the device that we use called the Life Flow. That the getting blood in 2.5 minutes is so game changing, and he's a physician who has a story as to why he created that device. But the speed by which you got that 500 cc's of blood in 2.5 minutes is because of him. So Dr. Peel, thanks for being on today. And I wonder if you have any comments, everything you've heard about today.
Thank you, Peter. I didn't know I was speaking, but thanks for the intro. And Adrian and Neer, thanks for your care of Corey, and Corey for sharing your story. I know that's still quite emotional to talk about it. And it's really encouraging to hear how this all went down and that you are here talking to us and alive and well today. So thanks to the incredible work of all the teams down there. So I would say, yes, minutes matter. I think Neer mentioned that in his comments. They do matter. And yeah, my origin story was sadly allowing a child to die who we couldn't get blood into fast enough. And that was kind of the instigator of the life flow in the first place. So it's incredible to see the effects out in the world now over, I think, Peter, many thousands of cases of EMS transfusion that we're both aware of across all the agencies that are doing this in a similar fashion. And you guys were some of the early leaders, along with, I see Tom Dransfield here from New Orleans on the line. Corey had penetrating trauma, essentially non-compressible torso trauma. And Neer, you can weigh in here. There was a compressible element. Obviously, someone's knee or elbow is on his groin, but there was internal bleeding going on as well. So even though he was awake and talking, I think his shock index was probably over 1 at the moment they arrived. He obviously had signs of shock, diaphoresis, maybe some agitation, sweating, the tachycardia, and he needed that shock reversed. Now, there's a risk that we've thought about called, risk of giving too much blood is something the surgeons are concerned about, that we might exacerbate the bleeding. for internal hemorrhage is not compressible. But we're not really seeing that in these cases, even of non-compressible torso trauma, when we give 1 or 2 units of blood rapidly. In fact, it buys us time, as you heard, giving warmed hemostatic resuscitation. By hemostatic, I mean the components all mixed together, plasma, platelets, blood, TXA. He arrives at the trauma center, and Near, I loved your comment that it gave you a bit of extra grace. You know his injury is horrible, but you have those extra minutes to think about what to do next and then go do that while he's relatively stable. That doesn't mean he's not going to keep bleeding until you fix him, but you have extra time to manage. And number two, I think the other thing we're learning is that the shock burden, he was in shock, so things are starting to die, nerves, tissue, brain, heart, lungs are not getting enough blood. Reversing that shock earlier means a better outcome, and I think is partially what explains the phenomenon y'all are talking about, which is the quick recovery. He was not left to be in shock, worsening shock over time. Therefore, he could be fixed quickly. Those tissues, including the nerve, could recover quickly, and did make a full recovery. So the speed of resuscitation near the point of injury, I think, is a dramatic shift in the way we provide trauma care. And then lastly, I'll mention it's encouraging to hear that he needed fewer heroic interventions. And we're seeing this across many, many agencies, namely pre-hospital airway management. So if he'd continued his downhill slide, Corey, you may not want to hear this, but worse things could have happened. Adrian could have had to put a breathing tube in. Other things could have had to be managed that weren't. He woke up, he was stable, he could get his pain controlled, and a much more thoughtful, calm approach could be taken as soon as he arrived at the trauma bay. So I think this case illustrates perfectly the need for pre-hospital blood, whether it's compressible or non-compressible hemorrhage, as close to the point of arrival of the EMS crews as possible. So thanks for inviting me on, Peter. Thank you all for sharing your story. It's super encouraging.
Thank you so much, Mark. There's two other people, and actually, maybe three. We're gonna go a little over. If you have to leave, I put the link on the side. But Chief Coyle, are you there? Because all of this is not possible except for this one guy right here. So Chief Coyle was the EMS chief at the time. He said with Dr. Shepke, we said, let's do blood. He flies to San Antonio with a team. He comes back. This guy fights for 3 years, 3 effing years to get past the attorneys, to get the contract signed. And he goes live with blood in July of 2022. So Chief Coyle, you're there in the audience, but I want you to say a couple of words because this is you, my friend.
Yeah, Peter, I still think I'm still fighting sometimes. I have a few things to say here. Number one, I want to just thank Deputy Zuccaro. Seeing him on the camera today, although you can't see me, I can see you. And watching you get emotional is why we fight, because it's worth it, and you're worth it. So thanks for being here, buddy. As far as Adrian Castro, Adrian, he'll sell himself short 10 out of 10 times. The guy's been in the game for 30 years. He's been a nurse for 20 years. I know he still looks like he's 32, but he's not. He worked on the Trauma Hawk. He's practiced in the ER for 20 years. I mean, this guy is a top-notch clinician. And, something was said earlier about when we're giving blood and vital signs. He would call me frequently when I was the MS chief and say, Chief, I bent the rules today. I just need you to know that. I said, all right, Adrian, well, tell me why you bent the rules. He says, well, I had this guy and this is what's going on. And he needed this blood today. So I did it. And, we had to battle. We did battle with the trauma centers. At that time, in 2022, both of the level 1 trauma centers were not carrying whole blood in Palm Beach County. So we had to tiptoe around in certain cases, and our clinicians fought through that and did the right thing. So I'm completely distinctly honored to be here. I'm so grateful to call Adrian my friend, as well as basically an EMS captain that I adore, and I'll always appreciate his work. And, Dr. Huss, I want to thank you as well. We do all this hard work pre-hospital, but if you don't have the skills and ability and willingness to, really go the extra mile, we wouldn't be here today on this call. with the deputy and with, all these other people from the state of Florida and EMS Captain Castro. So I'm extremely humbled and grateful to each and every one of you. And, I look forward to the future. And, those of you that don't have blood that are fighting, just keep fighting. Call me offline. Let's have a beer. 2018, Adrian Castro told me before I was the EMS chief, he says, Chief, we're never going to get this here. He had already been working on this for a year. And that was one of my goals in the first 6 months that I was there, to prove to him that he was worth what he wanted to do. And today it brings it all together. So thank you to each and every one of you. I appreciate and love you all.
Such great words. You're the best, Charlie. Thank you. Dr. Shepke. So that was a perfect segue into, somebody who is just a tremendous leader, tremendous human being who says, you know what, yes, we have it in Palm Beach County, but that's not good enough. Let's get it everywhere. And so he's looking very nice. He's at another conference today, but he's giving us his time today. Our Deputy Secretary of Health for the state of Florida. Ken, love to hear your comments and your reactions. And then if you can kind of tell us what the world looks like in the next couple of years.
Yeah. So first, Deputy, thank you so much for sharing your story. I don't think you realize how many lives your story can impact and save, just helping us get the word out, and you make it real for everyone. So thank you for coming on. I know it takes a lot. I'm going to echo a little bit of what Charlie said, what Peter said. I've worked with Adrian Castro for decades, both in the emergency department, out of the emergency department. And he is the reason why we have the no protocol, because we allow our EMS captains who are outstanding clinicians to go beyond the protocol when a scenario like yours, he obviously is clinically excellent enough to know that you needed blood. And I will say, I'm still a little pissed off at Dr. Bromberg. Everybody knows how much I like to be first, and he got to be first to do the whole blood while he was riding on the trucks. And so good job. We have seen the magic of whole blood, and we've seen it save life after life. Clearly, anything we do in the emergency department that is very time sensitive, because we know it's time sensitive to save lives, is something we should do before you get to the emergency department. And we've had that philosophy in Palm Beach County for many years. Whole blood is just the latest iteration of that. And a lot of things I do with the state, Peter told you I'm the Deputy Secretary for Health, is I take some of these life-saving ideas that we've pioneered in Palm Beach County and some of these other innovative, top-notch EMS agencies from around the country that we all get to learn from, thanks to Paul setting up this whole network and Peter keeping us all connected. And we take that and we try to make it statewide. Whole blood is another one where we need to do that. There are a number of agencies like mine that has the resources to be able to do this on our own, but there are many others that don't have our level of resource. Even though they're tax funded, their tax base might not be as good as Palm Beach County is. So I've put in a proposal to get some money, and I'll tell you how I picked the number, because Texas just did this. They got $10 million to help get whole blood out on their trucks, on their EMS rigs throughout the state. And of course, I play for Team Florida, and I won't let Florida be second to anybody. So I'm asking for $15 million from our legislators this year, so that we can get whole blood out on our trucks too. Now, obviously, it's a long road. We are in a sort of belt tightening mode, so asking for money is an uphill battle from the legislators all over our country this year. But this is clearly one where you get tremendous return on investment. Peter mentioned the 50% mortality rate. It's not 50% in Palm Beach County. We have an 87% survival rate. If we get to you and you're in extremis after a car crash or a hemorrhagic trauma, and we get you whole blood, it's 87% survival rate. There's very few things in medicine that has that much of an impact in survival rate. And you've heard from the trauma surgeons. Nir, thank you so much for coming on. This stuff is like magic. Our paramedics are already calling it Narcan for trauma, because the patients wake up, just like you said, Mark. These patients, normally we would have intubated them because they're getting out of it, and we give them blood and they wake up. Clearly proven to be a benefit, not only in terms of lives saved, but it decreases total amount of blood products you need to do. It decreases the number of days in the hospital. It decreases the cost overall. So I think this is a winner of a topic. I'm hopeful that our elected leadership will see this thing and we'll be able to push this through in Florida. Thanks, Peter, for the time.
And thank you, Ken. And before I want to end with Corey at the very end, but a lot of people come on this webinar to hear Tanner. So Tanner is my co-host, And Tanner is one of the brightest people I've ever met, and he's the future of our industry. So Tanner, I'd love to hear your comments, and thanks for coming on today.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. First of all, I'll say thank you for coming on and sharing your story, Corey. I'm glad you're on the road to recovery. One thing that has come up over and over again throughout this story is we've been talking about luck, right? You're lucky that 6 months ago a blood program launched nearby. You're lucky there was a physician on scene. You're lucky you were treated by an elite paramedic like Adrian. You got elite care from trauma surgeons once you got to the hospital. But moving forward, I look forward to living in a reality where luck doesn't come into it, right? And this sort of care, the availability of this resource, is something that is universal in the United States, and it's something that is expected, right? So when we're talking about these stories, and hopefully we will hear about more and more saves, it's expected care, and we don't have to say luck 10 times. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks again for coming on.
Tanner for president. I agree with you 100%. Thank you for mentioning that. And so let's end it with Corey giving us some final thoughts. You've heard a lot about what happened to you. You've met some of the people for the first time today. Hopefully we can meet in person and celebrate all together. You've heard what the type of care you got at the hospital. You heard about what we're doing, not just in Florida, but around the country. And I would love to hear your final thoughts before we end today about what all this has done for you, and what is your vision for the future for a product like this, whole blood in EMS?
Well, I am just a cop, so I'll give you the dumbed down version in my response. I don't understand why everybody fights things that are good for people. I don't understand why there's a ton of red tape. I don't understand why a country that gets $60 trillion in lotto money, but we still give our teachers money because they can't get pencils and pens and things. So why we can't get whole blood, I have no idea. I wish things would change. I think, Tanner, I'll take any luck I can get. I'd like it to not be luck, but I'll take it if I need it. My event, I don't remember as traumatic. It hurt. And when I look back at the healing process and going through the learning how to walk again, and the pelvis getting strong enough to put pressure on, and the miserable visits of climbing into a van and using a walker to the point where my hands had blisters on them. And I was fortunate enough to have great guys like Dr. Huss and personable, friendly people that actually have a brain and do things at a level that most people don't see. I never get a chance to experience, not that I want to again, so please, if there's anybody watching, don't let this happen again. But we walk into the hospital all the time with people that are hurt as law enforcement, and you guys do all the important work, but we just kind of walk behind and take for granted that the hospital's there and people fix people. But I got shot by a terrible round. It got placed in a terrible place. And again, back to that word luck, and I think Dr. Huss can agree to this or not agree, but it did hit some stuff, but it missed all the important things. It didn't go through the veins that would have killed me quickly, and hit the sciatic nerves and all the other things, and have me peeing in a bag and all the stuff that could really, really go wrong. I got very lucky and very unlucky in the same moment. How do you thank somebody who saved your life? I don't know. You just say thank you, I guess. I'm here. I'm still doing the same job. I'm healthy, still here for the kids, still here for my mom. So thank you is really all you can say to that. And if whole blood is the way to keep people alive, or if that was the reason that I'm still here and you guys need me to fight the fight, then let me know and I'll fight the fight.
And I don't think I've cried so many times in a webinar. But thank you, Corey. And listen, the way that I look at it is that your story, that you're not just a cop, you're a person who, like Ken said, you will save many, many, many more lives with your story, because it's so powerful. All of us feel the emotion. We're so happy that you're protecting all of us on the streets of Palm Beach County. And we all hope to get to meet you in person. We have a big conference every year in June. We'd love to invite you. It's here in Broward County, and perhaps we can expose your story to many more people. And at the state of Florida, with trying to get this big funding, that will save tens of thousands of lives. Tens of thousands of lives can be saved. So thank you so much. I know this was something that was not easy for you today to do, to come on today. You know, I'm sure there'll be people on this call who want to get in touch with you. I guess I'll leave that up to you over time to see
You
how
guys have
that
my
goes.
number. Whoever needs to call me, give me a call gladly. Just leave me a message. A lot of times I can't get to the phone, but I'm more than willing to talk to anybody.
Okay, you know what I'll do is if people want your email, I'll give them your email. If people want
Fine.
your email, I'll give it to you, because there are other people on this call who I couldn't get to today who are fighting for blood nationally. I see Randy Schaefer on the call, Tom Dransfield. We have some people on this call here who are and actually I before we go, because she's here and I'm just seeing her here. Like Randy Schaefer. So Randy, retired lieutenant colonel from the U.S. military, and she is responsible for blood in many, 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 many cities across this country. And so, Randy, we're gonna take it away with you, since you started this whole mess in San Antonio to get the first civilian blood on in America. So react to the story and then take us away.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Corey, hearing stories like yours absolutely make us dogged in our pursuit to get Adrian, to get Charlie, to get Tom the tools they need in their hands to save lives. I've seen a lot of 5.56 rounds to the pelvis that don't always have such a great ending to them. By the way, the biggest compliment in the world I can get from a patient is, I don't remember when you took care of me. That means the right amount of Versed was given. So that's the biggest compliment you give. But thank you. We are going to get this rolled out. We need to get you home to your kids and your family. And these are preventable deaths with a little bit of pressure, some blood products to give Dr. Huss time to do his work. So thank you. Unfortunately, less than 2% of EMS agencies in the country have this capability, and we need to fix that.
I predict that in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to say, how the hell did we not have this resource? And Corey said it right. How is it? How could it be that there's so much money everywhere and we're just not doing the right things? But it's people like you, it's people like Shepke, it's people like Coyle who are not going to say no. And like you're just going to continue to fight. And so this has been, for me, the best kind of feeling webinar we've ever done. And Corey, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining today. And if you're hearing this and you don't have blood today, fight for it. Go out there and just fight like hell and use us as resources. We are not going to stop until we get this done. So to all of you out there, stay safe. Corey, you stay safe. Get back to your family. And thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure meeting everybody. Thanks so much.
Hey, bye, everybody. Take care.